Hey, what is up? So for this video, what I wanted to talk about is the plot of Howard Hamlin as we all wait for the premiere of Season 6 of Better Call Saul. And what interests me about Howard's plot is that this plot is one of the most open-ended storylines of the entire plot of Season 6 of Better Call Saul. Because with the addition of Kim Wexler, these two characters are the only two characters, main characters if you will, in the plot of Better Call Saul, who were not mentioned or seen at all in the plot of Breaking Bad. That includes via dialogue, like Saul Goodman's dialogue, which mentioned Lalo Salamanca and Nacho Varga, but that's a discussion for a different video. But getting back to the plot of Howard Hamlin, if we remember at the conclusion of Season 5 of Better Call Saul, Howard's plot left off with Jimmy and Kim seemingly attempting to get Howard disbarred and legally discredited in order to speed up the settlement of the Sandpiper Crossing settlement, thus ensuring Jimmy getting his portion that's due to him much faster. Again, there's a lot of background detail here and a lot of plot that happened over the course of the final episode of Season 5 of Better Call Saul, which explains the rationale behind all of this, you know, with Kim quitting her job the episode prior and her not having any income. But of course, on top of this, another portion of this plot, in addition to Kim wanting the money to speed up this process with Jimmy, is sort of Kim's disdain that we see her express towards Howard Hamlin in the final episode of Season 5. Because if we remember back when Kim is at the courthouse and she meets Howard in the elevator, following Kim telling Howard that she's no longer at Schweigert and Coakley and back out on her own, Howard uses this opportunity to tell Kim everything that Jimmy had done to him over the course of this season, including throwing bowling balls at his car and sending prostitutes to his business lunch in order to embarrass him, sort of heeding a warning to Kim about Jimmy and his behavior. Of course, this leads to Kim laughing in Howard's face, because compared to everything else that Jimmy has done this season involving getting shot at by the cartel, this seems pretty tame to Kim, these sort of almost practical jokes, if you will.
Howard, you really had me going there.
Laugh if you want. But no person in their right mind would behave the way Jimmy has. We are talking about someone who's not in control of himself.
Kim very dismissive of all of this, and then following her returning back to the hotel which they are staying at in this episode, Kim sort of tells Saul her disdain for Howard, sort of trying to white knight her, if you will, trying to save her from Jimmy's antics and Jimmy's destructive behavior.
You know why Hamlin told me all that? It was for my own good. Like I'm just waiting for him to ride up on his white horse. It's all about him. It's always all about him. The guy's in love with himself. He needed to be taken down a peg.
And of course, following this, we then see them sort of playfully go back and forth, describing more sort of pranks, almost if you will, of what they would do next to Howard, such as bleaching his hair or shaving his head, stuff of that nature. But of course, then the conversation eventually goes to discrediting him, in that if his reputation is so damaged as part of the Sandpiper Crossing settlement, which HHM has spent so much money on, if anything happens to this settlement, then there's a risk of the whole thing blowing up and all of this being for nothing. So if Howard's reputation is tarnished, it's likely that HHM and Davis and Maine will want to settle immediately in order to make sure they get something from the settlement. And so while it appears that Jimmy and Kim are going after Howard here in this scene, there's actually a very interesting piece of dialogue in this scene that sort of explains Kim's rationale for doing all of this, in that while they're going after Howard Hamlin personally and taking him down a peg and destroying him, it almost seems that Kim is justifying this in that this action will do a great amount of good for society as a whole, in spite of it affecting just one lawyer. Because she would use the Sandpiper Crossing money that she and Jimmy would get as husband and wife in order to open up a legal practice in order to help people who have nowhere else to turn.
I'd hire Step away from Schweikert. I'd hire Bruce from HHM. I'd get Viola. I'd rent the smallest, shittiest office I could find in a courthouse and open a pro bono practice. Give regular people the kind of representation usually only millionaires get.
So yeah, this is a pretty interesting piece of Kim's dialogue here in this scene where we see once they get the sped up Sandpiper Crossing settlement money, she would use the money to help people who couldn't afford a high quality of legal service that's usually only offered to millionaires. So this is interesting here where Kim is sort of rationalizing her destroying Howard's reputation in that it's going to do good for society as a whole in her mind. And it kind of, I'm no expert in this for sure, but it kind of harkens back to the sort of question you learn in, psychology like class in high school, where if you pull the train switch and, one person gets hurt, but you save 1,000, is it sort of worth it? But you're the one doing the action, so you're the one morally culpable for that person's injury. It kind of reminds me of that. Like I said, I'm no expert here, but it seems to be Kim's rationale for going after Howard personally here. And so now while we kind of see the plot and the stage set for Jimmy and Kim going against Howard in season 6 of Better Call Saul, the question I feel like asking here is, does Howard Hamlin really deserve all of this? Because in my humble opinion, I don't really see Howard Hamlin as a bad guy in the sort of way that maybe Kim does in this scene. Were any of his actions really over the course of season 5 of Better Call Saul really that bad? In my opinion, it wasn't, because if we go back and look at what transpired for Howard Hamlin in the plot of season 5 of Better Call Saul, we first see him offer Jimmy this job at HHM, sort of him expressing his regret of not doing it in the first place. Of course, this was done at the wishes of Chuck. Howard telling Jimmy that he deserves this job, even going so far as, admiring him, advocating for the shoplifter Crispy Esposito for the scholarship, standing up for the little guy here. And honestly, I think Howard was being sincere. I talked about this in my review of the episode Namaste. I don't think Howard is trying to sort of manipulate Jimmy here. I really think that Howard is searching for inner peace, if you will, following everything that happened with Chuck. And so really, on top of offering Jimmy the job and then sort of warning Kim about Jimmy's destructive tendencies and sort of how Jimmy tends to corrupt people who are around him, Howard even going so far as telling Kim that Chuck really knew Jimmy and this, to Howard, was not a good person and someone who needed help.
You gotta listen to me. The man needs help.
Howard, I know Jimmy, and you're wrong.
You know who really knew Jimmy? Chuck.
And just as a quick tangent here in regards to Howard's dialogue surrounding Chuck in this scene, we can definitely see Howard heed a warning to Kim regarding Chuck being correct about Jimmy and that Jimmy has self-destructive tendencies and tends to bring down and corrupt those close to him, which included, in this case, Chuck, whose ultimate demise, I would say, Howard believed had something to do with Jimmy's actions. Again, over the course of this episode, we don't really see Kim heed Howard's advice here in this scene, and she stays loyal to Jimmy, of course. But yeah, just in my opinion, a very interesting piece of foreshadowing here, potentially for the plot of Kim, via Howard's words in this scene. So that pretty much sums up Howard Hamlin's actions here in season 5 of Better Call Saul, of offering Jimmy the job at HHM, and then telling Kim that Jimmy is a person that needs help and tends to have destructive tendencies for himself and those around him. That's really the extent of what Howard did this season. In addition to this, it also should be pointed out there was the whole confrontation that Howard had with Jimmy when this finally came to pass, where Howard called Jimmy out on throwing the bowling balls at his car and sending the prostitutes to his business lunch, telling Jimmy, "I'm sorry you're in pain." I mean, again, I don't really see Howard Hamlin as a bad guy here for doing that, if you will. Again, I feel like there's really a lot of nuance here, and this is quite a complicated sort of plot that's ensuing between all of these characters. Even when Jimmy in that scene goes as far to tell Howard that you killed my brother and you're sorry. I mean, not to go too much off on a tangent here, but I don't even know if Jimmy really even believes that Howard was the one who ultimately killed Chuck. I mean, maybe the whole premise with the insurance that Howard mentioned in season 4 of Better Call Saul, where I think Chuck might have done what he did because of me, and Jimmy telling Howard, well, Howard, that's your cross to bear. Again, was Howard maybe the straw that broke the camel's back for Chuck? Maybe. I think that's definitely possible, but again, we have to remember there is so much else going on with Chuck, with the whole storyline involving his reaction to his brother Jimmy. Again, a lot of nuance here, so I have a little bit of hesitation in totally pinning the death of Chuck on Howard, and I don't even know if Jimmy really believes it here in the scene. I think he may have just been in an extremely emotional state and trying to score points with Howard. But again, like I said, a very complicated, nuanced scene here.
Lightning bolts shoot from my fingertips!
So yeah, that's sort of just my thoughts here on Howard's plot as we move forward in season 6 of Better Call Saul. That I personally don't see Howard Hamlin as a bad guy, if you will. I know initially he was presented to us as a sort of, you know, Lord Vader character who prevented Jimmy from working at HHM. But of course it was revealed to us over the course of this series that that was all Chuck's doing. And sort of Howard was just the figurehead who made it look as though Jimmy couldn't work there because Chuck didn't want to hurt Jimmy's feelings. But I guess it definitely should be pointed out that at the same time that while it wasn't Howard who was the one who prevented Jimmy from working at HHM, in regards to how Kim may see him, especially at the end of season 5 of Better Call Saul, I guess it should be reminded the whole plot that ensued in season 3 of Better Call Saul, following Jimmy airing that commercial with Davis and Maine, and Howard sort of punishing Kim because of it, because Davis and Maine and HHM were partnered on the Sandpiper case, and the whole sort of Howard demoting Kim to doc review and making her do all of this extra work. I can definitely see how Kim may resent Howard for that. But at the same time, I feel like that just sort of business culture, if you will. I feel like corporate lawyers have this sort of cutthroat culture, and I'm sure that, you know, Kim is not the only person who Howard did this to. Like I said, again, very complicated, the whole sort of legal profession and things of that nature. But again, another facet of this plot that maybe could come up in season 6 of Better Call Saul for sure. So now, with all of that being taken into consideration, the final question here that I find myself asking as we wait for season 6 of Better Call Saul is, what is going to be the ultimate fate of Howard Hamlin in the plot of this series? Because while there's a lot of main characters who we know are untouchable because they survived to see the plot of Breaking Bad, Howard Hamlin's fate is pretty open-ended here in the plot of Better Call Saul. And now, while of course we're just speculating here and we have no way of knowing whether or not Howard will meet his demise somehow as part of Jimmy and Kim's plan next season, while we definitely don't know what will happen, I definitely think it's theoretically possible for sure. Of course, we're just speculating here, but maybe whatever Jimmy and Kim does to Howard next season could somehow, accidentally maybe, I don't know, lead to his death. I'm not really sure. But no matter what happens, Howard Hamlin is definitely a potential character to meet his demise next season. It definitely sort of makes sense to me based on the nature of every other character's plot in the storyline, including Jimmy and Kim. Maybe Kim gets caught up in this somehow in a way where there are very dire consequences for her that ultimately affect the conclusion of her plot next season. Again, I'm not really sure, and I'm very curious to see what happens next season. So yeah, that's all I really got for you on this one. Again, this is a pretty complex plot here that happens at the end of Season 5 of Better Call Saul. There's a lot of moving parts here involving all three of these characters that I discussed, Jimmy, Kim, and Howard. And actually, when I finally get to reviewing the final episode of Season 5 of Better Call Saul at some point in time before the start of Season 6, I will definitely try to break down this plot in more detail when I'm reviewing that episode down the line. But anyway, other than that, that's all I really got for you guys on this one. Like I said, very curious to see what happens to Howard Hamlin next season. Very curious to see what sort of story and what sort of ending the creators paint for this character and how it affects characters like Jimmy and Kim, of course. As always, my name is Anton Jackson. Thank you so much for watching this video.